Impact Society is an Alberta-founded organization that has been developing curriculum resources for students, communities, and families for over 25 years.
We help young people build the confidence so that they are able to see who they really are, and then have decision-making processes so they can use their strengths to build long-term values and a purpose for life.
Our programs have been proven to improve the resilience as well as 35 different psychological and sociological factors of young people that contribute to a flourishing mind, a flourishing life.
Helping community leaders, educators, youth workers understand how to use these programs, but even more so, the processes to build the strengths of the young people around them.
What our programs do is help young people go through the hero's journey of experiencing who they are, helping them understand what their gifts and abilities are, and then how to use those gifts and abilities to build themselves up and build others around them. Our programs improve mental well-being and mental health. They don't teach kids about mental health. It's not a psychology course. This is a personal development course. It helps them see who they are and see how they can use their gifts and abilities to impact themselves and the world around them.
The result is, as we have the science to prove, young people grow in their capacity to relate to each other, their ability to support each other, and build a community around them to become the real heroes, a person who is able to build their own strengths and the strengths of the people around them. That's Impact Society.
Thank you for joining us for a virtual celebration for our Impact Society 25 years. We're excited that you're here. I'm Colette Toth.
And I'm Jack Toth, and it's great to have you in this time when, we've got to do things differently, socially distant, but we are going to have a great evening, and Chris Primo is joining us as well.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, Chris Primo, and tonight we have a lot in store for you. We're going to take you through the past, the present, and the future of the Impact Society and the amazing legacy that this organization has in the lives of hundreds of thousands of youth, educators, and parents across Canada, here in Alberta, and around the world. So thank you for being part of this, and we look forward to sharing the past, but also being part of the future with you.
And so, as we have been putting together this evening, it's really been a desire of us that we're going to be able to bring some encouragement and joy into your home, because Impact Society has always been an organization that focuses on strengths, focuses on the good things going on around us. It's right now, in the time that we are facing, it would be quite easy to be looking at the challenges. And yes, we have tried to have this event for a year, and now look what we're doing. We're having it in our home.
Yeah, so in 1994, we started the Impact Society. And kind of a fun fact, back then it was actually used to be called the Jennifer Jan Society. Jack's first office was in the basement of our home. And here we are tonight having our virtual event because of the circumstances in our home. So welcome.
And over the 25 years, we feel so blessed for the people who have been a part in believing in us. When Colette and I started 25, almost 26 years ago, we didn't have an income. At times we've looked at it and said, what were we thinking? But there's folks like High Country Chevrolet and ARC Financial and TransCanada Corporation, companies like that believed in building youth and came alongside. And so we're so thankful for that. And now, Chris, you're going to introduce our first video.
Absolutely, and like Jack has said, that it's an organization that started a long time ago for a purpose that continues to live on, and tonight we're celebrating that legacy, but also looking forward to what's to come next and how we can continue to work together with you and with our partners and with educators all across the globe to make sure that young people have the tools and the system of support they need to have positive mental well-being and a flourishing life. So check out this video. It's a bit of the story of the origins, but ultimately this came down to Colette and Jack having a burden for the youth and wanting to see something significant happen that would shape the lives of a generation.
So growing up, I grew up in a farm family where we worked hard.
certainly cared for, and I know my parents loved me. They may not have expressed it very much, but I know now they did, although when I was an adolescent and that I really questioned that they did. And I began to question if I had any value in the world. I started to feel like I was a waste of air. That's the best way I could term it. That I had nothing going for me, that I didn't have any strengths, that I didn't have anything to contribute. And in the home that we were raised in, yes, it was a good home, but it really was a very behavior-based home where expectations were pretty high. And in my whole life, I'd never ever heard my dad say, "I'm proud of you." I heard him kind of say it to somebody else when I was in my 30s, and I could remember just wishing if he would say that to me, it would mean so much, but I never ever heard it. So I grew up in a home where it seemed like the behavior that was expected was always a few steps ahead of what I could get to. And as a result, when I was 15, 16, I began to do things that I was not proud of, and in that I would drink with friends and never let my parents know about it, of course, and just be acting in a way I knew just wasn't right, and it really wasn't me, but I was doing it to try and fit in. But when I was 16 years old, and it was right around Easter, and my parents were on a very rare holiday. I only remember my parents ever taking 3 holidays in their lives, and this was one of them. And they were gone to Eastern Canada for a couple of weeks, and it just so happened in Saskatchewan we had Easter exams. It was right at that time, and boy, I was not doing well in my exams. And I remember getting off the school bus, walking up our lane, our country lane. There's about 100 yards, and I'm walking, and I can still reflect back and remember kicking stones as I walk up the driveway to the house, and I'm getting home alone. I've got an older brother who's out doing chores. We had cattle and grain, and so there was always lots of work. I was supposed to get inside, get changed, and get outside and start working with him. But I can remember I'm walking up this gravel lane and I'm kicking the rocks as I go, going, why am I here? What use do I bring to the world? And by the time I was in the house, I was at a place of saying that the world would be better off without me. And so instead of getting changed to go outside, I remember going and getting my brother's .30-06 hunting rifle off the gun rack and sitting on my bed, and I remember staring down at this gun, and I can still, if I close my eyes, I can still picture the cold blue steel of that rifle, being moments from turning it towards me, but something inside saying, don't do it. Your parents really do love you. Even though I didn't feel that, that's the place I had gotten to. And so I ended up putting the gun back on the shelf and going out and helping my brother, and I was pretty messed up at that point. But as I started to come out of that, I suppose there's probably a lot of depression in that going on, which I did not understand at the time. As I began to come out of that, and when I was 17 years old, really coming out of that and having a strong faith experience. When I was 17, I dedicated myself to helping young people never get to that spot.
I hope you enjoyed that video and hearing from Jack. You'll hear a lot more as the night goes on about the phenomenal work that this organization is doing. Many of you may not have met me before, but I'm sure that if you're tuning in tonight that you know or at least have heard of Jack and Colette Toth, who have dedicated their entire lives to building the Impact Society so that young people have an opportunity to identify their gifts and abilities, to live from those gifts and abilities, and to live remarkable lives that are purpose-driven and centered as a result. But this organization was founded not just out of hope and a desire to invest in the next generation, but was born out of tragedy. The loss of a young girl here in Calgary, Alberta, in the early 90s, named Jennifer Jans, was the catalyst for the beginning of this organization. Jack had worked with youth throughout his career up until that point with a strong desire and a passion to help youth who were on the margins, youth who were at risk, youth who had been lost, to help find them, to help them find their purpose, to find significance, and to live a life of excellence. But it was the loss of Jennifer in Jack's life that broke his heart for the ordinary and showed him that he had a mission in this world to help young people see who they were, build a strength-based identity, and get there before risk becomes a lifestyle. There's so many risks out there in our world today, especially now with the rise of social media and other risks that invade the lives of youth and can potentially make them feel less than. Jack was determined to get into the schools and into the lives of these young people before that risk set in a preventative, proactive way that ensured that they could see who they were and that for the rest of their lives they'd be unwilling to settle for less. But it did begin with heartbreak, and this is the story of Jennifer Jans.
I probably met Jennifer, I'm estimating she was around 12 years old. And in the time process, watching her in school, she was one of those individuals. She could sing, she could dance, she was pretty. She tended to be the captain of sports teams. She could really engage in a conversation, really intelligent and in practical ways. The challenge was that when Jennifer was good, she was very good. When she was going to be bad, she was going to be bad. And so the result was she looked for excitement in her life, and in her early teenage years began to hang out with what I called punk gangs at the time, the kind gangs that would spray paint fences and garages. And Jennifer quickly progressed to, by the time she was around 14, maybe early 15 years of age, she was running with the worst gang in Calgary. And she would run away from home for fun and run with the gang, do things on the street as a young lady would. But for her, it was all the excitement of it. And then one day I get a call from her stepmom saying, "Jack, we're so concerned about Jennifer. She's run away from home again." They knew she was staying at Avenue 15, which is a place in Calgary that runaway youth could stay at. And so we arranged it where I, on a Friday night, could pick her up, and I was running youth events at that time for an organization I was working with. So I picked her up, took her to the youth event, and took her out for dinner after. And as I'm talking to her over dinner and just, again, trying to get through to her about the person she really could be and the strength she had. And again, she just wanted to stay very surfaced. So we didn't really connect on a deeper level at that time. We had an okay conversation and it lasted quite a while. It just never went deep. And I remember when I was dropping her off at Avenue 15, I remember looking at her as she's getting out of the vehicle, and I just said, "Jennifer, this isn't Hollywood. You could die out there." And she looked me straight in the eye and she said, "Don't worry, Jack, I can handle it." And it was I believe about 10 days after that I got a call from her stepmom asking if I'd heard from Jennifer, because they hadn't heard from her in about a week, which was unusual. Even when she would run away, she would still call them every day. And it was maybe a week or so after that, I was actually coming out of a school where I had been teaching the early form of heroes to students, and I was coming out of the school, and the school called me and said, "Jack, we got a call, somebody needs you to call them urgently." And I called, it was Jennifer's stepmom, and she informed me that they'd found Jennifer's body. And that's pretty tough. probably one of those heart moments that causes you to feel we've got to do more.
So as you listen to that story of Jennifer, yes, it really was a big catalyst. But I want you to think, as you're watching that, I want you to think of something in your own life. How many times has tragedy been the starting point for something successful, for something significant to come out of your life? Here we are with Jennifer, and out of the tragic passing of Jennifer, what happened was, after it took a couple of years for her parents to be able to give permission for us to move forward with the Jennifer Jan Society, which in 1998 we changed the name to the Impact Society. But it took them a couple of years to be able to give us permission to move forward. But now from that passing, that tragic passing, there has been over 200,000 young people who have been impacted, who have been given hope and purpose. So even as we're going into this Christmas season, and it's going to be pretty easy to kind of get caught up in some of the challenges that are going around, that are going on around us and around the world. But I invite you to reflect on, where has a challenge led you further into your destiny? But as we look at Impact Society, something that we know is that mental health crisis, mental health challenges cross cultural and economic boundaries. It doesn't matter if people are rich or poor, their ethnicity, where they're born. It crosses all those boundaries. And Jennifer's story for us was one reason, was the catalyst for us to start. But there's so many stories that have happened with Colette and I, and the many people who have been on our team, whether they're volunteers or teachers in a classroom. There's so many people that have contributed stories that we've seen.
Yeah, and one of my most favorite things to do is be able to get into the classroom and just connect with these students, and you get to know a lot about them really fast just because of the journal, and you'll be hearing more of that later. But we've really come across a lot of kids, you know, just speaking to the need of what we do. You know, there was the girl that you talk about, that her safe place was school. It was the first place that she went when she got up in the morning, and she could stay as long as she could. There's the kids that, you know, he's a bully, and the teachers and the administration have no idea what to do with him. The ones that are bullied because, you know, a speech impediment. I think of the young teen that was dealing with her mom with mental health issues and just the pressures that she has to go through, right? So there's so many needs out there, but that's why we do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, and we couldn't even tell you all of the times of young people who have come to us and said, I'm not going to commit suicide now, or I have stopped cutting. So there's what you're doing, those of you who have invested, you've actually changed even family history, the future for families, because some of the young people come from a place of challenge where they haven't known different, but now they've resolved. They're going to live with purpose, and they're going to help others around them live with purpose.
Well, and sometimes it's just a matter of that kids are just plain shy, like they just don't have that confidence to even put up their hand in class, right?
Yeah. And
it just builds, you know, when we build that inner self of a person and we help them see who they really are, that they just, the courage that comes out of that is amazing. Yeah. So, but yeah, the evolution of heroes it's really happening.
Yeah, when we first started Impact Society and we're endeavoring to really help youth in Northeast Calgary, one of the first things we did was give young people a place to go Sunday afternoons, Wednesday evenings, and then late Friday nights. And on what we would do on the Friday nights from 10 at night to 2 in the morning, the youth would play basketball. We gave them a safe place to come. And at midnight, I'd blow a whistle, and for 7 to 10 minutes, I would give them a basic thought, a basic teaching from the Heroes program, but in a 10-minute segment. Here's the story of Terrence. He's just going to tell you a little bit of what he remembers many years later, and he now is a very successful businessman in Calgary.
Something that I learned from Jack, I can kind of compare metaphorically to a bowling alley. When I think about some of the stuff I learned from Jack is, if you compare life to a bowling alley, life is kind of like the bowling alley, and the gutters are all the bad things that can happen in life and all the distractions to pull you off your track. And what we learned from Jack, and what we later learned that he was teaching with Impact, is Impact and Jack's lessons are kind of like the protective boundaries that come down to protect the gutters. And when implemented, you know, it keeps the ball going down the middle of the lane. And that's kind of like what life is like. You know, the lessons you learned from Jack and from Impact, it's kind of like when life got crazy and was pulling you into the gutter, it's like the guardrails came down and it keeps you going down the path. You can bounce around a little, but you end up at the finish line, healthy, safe, and usually where you want to be.
So what we do with Heroes, that is our program that we use in schools, is what we do is really focus on what we see a person does right rather than their behavior. So often we're so behavior modification focused, that's a big mouthful to come out, that we forget that we need to step back and understand where a person is.
And everybody has strengths.
That everybody has strengths. So I have a water bottle here, and the reason I buy a water bottle is not because of a certain shape, it's not because I like the label, it's not because it costs a certain amount. The reason that I buy a water bottle when I'm really thirsty is because I want the
water.
The water. I want what's inside of it. That's what's important to me. That's where the value is. And that's what we do with the young people. We talk to them about, where's your value? It's not how you're dressed. It's not how you wear your hair. It's not what neighborhood you come from. It's who you are inside, those gifts and abilities and the strengths that you have inside, those dreams and desires that are inside and sometimes get really covered up because of circumstances in life, right? So what we do is we talk to the students that as important as water is to our physical bodies, we can't live without it. It's most valuable, kind of priceless, right? When you think about it that way. As important as that is for our physical bodies, knowing that we have gifts and abilities or things that we're good at, that's important for our emotional health. So that's what we do, is really get the students to focus on the things that they're good at rather than their behavior, right?
But in life, challenges happen. And the easiest way I can tell you about this is, so here's the gifts and abilities. Everyone has gifts and abilities and the desire to succeed. We're all designed and created with them. But in life, things happen. And we put walls up around the gifts and abilities. And I think the easiest way right now for me to tell you about the walls is to just summarize it in a story. A number of years ago, a girl, a very pretty young girl from a school that we were, that had run Heroes, she came to me at one point and she said, "Mr. Toth, you're my hero." And I looked at her and I just, of course, asked her why. Well, what had happened was actually in the class, she kept putting on this persona of being tougher and just really trying to keep people at a distance. And then in a class, she opened up about what happened in her family, and unfortunately, a tragic separation of her parents. And she talked about the time when she had to decide who, when she was asked who she was going to live with. And she said she...
At 12 years, 11, 12 years old,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Having to make a decision like that.
And she talked about how her mind went blank and she actually could not talk. And so what happened to this young lady, here she is, she's pushing people away, she's seeming tough, she's seeming like, you're not going to get through to me. And what we tell people is, when you see a wall, somebody's actually giving you a gift. because they're showing you the wall is always opposite to their strength, to who they really are. So in her pushing people away and being hard, really felt that inside there's a softness, and she wants to be able to have people close. What would happen was the walls that we put up are because of fears, are because of circumstances, and are because of words said to us. There unfortunately were things that were said to her at that time that caused her to feel less than. The circumstance of the divorce that she went through then caused her to feel like, people, if my parents couldn't stick around me, who will? Who can I trust in my life? And for her, that's a wall that she put up. And from that, then there was the fears of always being alone. So that is a challenge. And so at Impact Society, what we do is this. And we challenge, we encourage you in your home, with your children, with people around you, the youth that you influence. What are the gifts and abilities in the people around you? What are the gifts and abilities in your partner, in people at work? When you look for the gifts and abilities rather than the walls, and you speak to those gifts and abilities, what happens is people want to take down the walls. And I'll never forget that young lady coming to me and saying, I've decided what I want to do when I'm done school. I want to become a lawyer because I want to help young people who have gone through challenges like I have. Now, I don't know if she did become the lawyer, but I know she was a dramatically different person from that time on.
Yeah, so that is basically the foundation of Heroes, is what we do, is just making sure that we're nurturing and cultivating and helping students build their inner self, right? Mm-hmm. Building their strengths, building their gifts and abilities, building on their core values so they have that character to make better decisions.
Right. So now, as we continue to move forward, and I'm just getting a little bit of guidance here, we are going to go to where Chris now is going to be introducing the Impact Society of the present. So far, we've given you some of the history, the many people who have been involved. We can't name them all. We wish we could. There's been so many people who have sacrificed. I've got to, I think, way back to Mark Gordon, bring his whole family to Calgary without us promising them any salary. But through the years, people who have invested, been a part of the team so we could get to today. And now Chris is going to talk to you about the present.
Take it away, Chris.
Well, the last 25 years wouldn't have resulted in this if not for determination, a passion, but also good supports and good people coming alongside to help make things better. And that's really one of the best assets that the organization over the last 25 years and today has had, is great people coming together around a common vision as well as a common need. That the next generation has an opportunity to do things better. That each individual in our schools and in our families and in our communities has an opportunity to see who they really are and to live from that truth and overcome the barriers that life brings at you. We wish that we could eliminate risk. We can't. But what we can do is one step closer. By allowing young people to have the tools and the strengths that they need in order to navigate a world full of risk, we're able to better equip them, their educators, and their parents to foster those strengths and to live lives of excellence. Everyone has a story. And the last 25 years of impact, 200,000 lives served, over 10,000 students per year being equipped with this learning and this self-discovery process has resulted in an impact society that is stronger, is more knowledge-based, and has the evidence to show that what we do matters, from a data level all the way through to an individual saying, I get it, I know who I am, and I know how to overcome the barriers that life throws at me. Because we know in life there will be challenges. But when you understand who you are and you have the system of supports around you, you can overcome those challenges. And what we endeavor to do through this in-depth process, this self-discovery journey of heroes, is to attach real stories. Heroes is what I call them. Individuals that we know, that we've had opportunities to discuss stories with, that we've been able to share now with these young people, And their stories are now making a difference in the lives of the young people who are going through the Heroes program. So here's just one example of a story in our program today that thousands of youth are going to be experiencing and changed by. So check this out.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Stump. I have been connected with the Heroes program and the Toths for 25 years, which is crazy to think that this is the 25-year anniversary, and I've kind of been able to watch this full circle with them. I'm really honored to be here. Everyone has a story. Sitting in the waiting room, my thoughts are anxious. I'd gotten the call that Jeremiah had been rushed to the hospital after collapsing on the ice while playing hockey. The news that he had suffered a brain aneurysm and that survival was doubtful left me numb. Would he pull through? It was a miracle that one of the best brain surgeons in Canada happened to be available. Jeremiah was whisked straight into the operating room, and all of us, friends, family, and co-workers, waited anxiously, knowing that Jeremiah was inside fighting for his life. However, facing challenges is nothing new to my husband. My eyes slowly closed, taking me back to his difficult upbringing. I hope he knows how proud I am of him. Jeremiah is a husband, father, and police officer. He has the ability to see the good in people. He has a special compassion for troubled youth. I think I know why. He sees his younger self in their eyes. You're useless and you'll never amount to anything. Those words rang in Jeremiah's ears as he was expelled for fighting and bullying from yet another junior high school. He told me that in his heart he wanted to believe that those words were a lie, but a little voice in the back of his head kept saying, were they? My understanding is that everyone has a story, and that there was a reason Jeremiah was overtaken by such anger directed towards his peers. For me, it was normal to grow up in a home with parents who loved, nurtured, and supported me, but normal for Jeremiah was a life of poverty, lack of care, and a warped value system that left him with little hope for a purposeful future. When I hear how his mom was torn from her home as a young girl and thrust into residential schools, my thoughts go to our beautiful 6-month-old daughter. How agonizing an experience like that would be for her, and for us. In residential schools, his mom was taught that her language, culture, and beliefs were wrong and of the devil. With so much pain inflicted upon her, like many residential school survivors, she later walked a path of self-hatred and addiction, often taking it out on her children. Moving constantly, they frequently left their home with little more than their photographs, starting over again. 3 or 4 families would live in a small house on the reserve. In one house, Jeremiah's bedroom was on the floor of a furnace room, where he and several cousins slept on the thin mats. Drugs were sold from the house, and as a 9-year-old, he rolled joints to help with the family business. His brother would beat him up just to keep him tough, a completely different relationship than I have with my brother. Suicide, overdoses, addiction, and accidents took a heavy toll on those around him. The casualties tore at his heart, leaving him feeling shrouded by death. Instructed by the idea that men don't cry, he internalized his pain, even as his anger continued to build. Family role models were hard to come by, but his grandfather, who had died 10 years before Jeremiah was born, was held in high regard. As an elder, his grandfather had been honored and respected for his wisdom and caring spirit. You're just like your grandfather, Jeremiah was frequently told. I believe those words planted a seed of hope in his spirit. When his family left the reserve yet again, this time relocating to Calgary, Jeremiah repeated grade 10 at a high school I eventually attended. Even though he frequently skipped class to play pool across the street, I believe it was his love of sports that started him on a different trajectory. Being naturally athletic, he earned a position on the school's football team, but belonging to the team meant he had to commit to school, a rule he quickly learned when he ended up on probation for missing classes. Back at home, things continued to deteriorate. After a fight with his mom, Jeremiah left home with no place to go. The team was all he had. To remain on the team, he would sleep in the bus shelter or on a friend's couch, anywhere he could, often getting to school early so that he could shower before others arrived. Many still regarded him as a bully and a troublemaker, but Jeremiah's coaches saw beyond his behavior. Taking time with him off the field, walking him through his struggles, treating him with honor and respect. His coaches helped him to navigate through his difficulties so he could think ahead to his future. Jeremiah had always dreamed about being a police officer. However, this dream seemed out of reach due to the many struggles he'd faced and the choices he had made. His behavior did not align with his goals. Fortunately, his football coach was also a school resource police officer. He challenged Jeremiah to pursue his dream and not give up. We met at a house party 12 years ago. I'm not sure how we connected, but perhaps our love of sports and competitive spirit drew us together. Jeremiah was vulnerable about sharing his goals, so he had become somewhat of a project for me. It didn't take me long to see past his walls, and despite his hard exterior, find the love, care, and compassion he had for others, and for me. When I heard he was going to spend Christmas alone that year, I knew what I had to do. I talked to my parents into having him join us for Christmas, and they reluctantly agreed. Christmas is a big event in my house, and wanting him to feel included, we all bought him gifts. He later told me that he had never experienced such a sense of belonging in his life, and the man who was taught not to cry found himself welling up with tears at the love he experienced. But isn't this what family's for? Anyone who knows me understands that I'm all about encouraging people to reach their potential. I believed in Jeremiah's dream, even though many scoffed at him, saying that his past disqualified him from a distinguished future. Nevertheless, his perseverance and hard work finally paid off. When he became a member of the Calgary Police Service, all of us celebrated. His mom was so proud. Our daughter was born 6 months ago. In that short time, in addition to being a loving husband, Jeremiah also became a doting father. Now, sitting here in the hospital waiting room, praying he won't be taken away from me, just as we're starting our own family. The thought of losing him rips me apart. At the sound of the waiting room doors opening, reality returns. When the surgeon tells us that Jeremiah has pulled through his grueling 13-hour surgery, gratitude and relief washes over me. There will be a long road of recovery, but with Jeremiah's fierce determination, he will soon be back doing what he loves to do, continuing to honor the legacy of his grandfather.
Such an amazing story, and I just want to take time and just thank Jeremiah and Chelsea for allowing us to use that story in our New Heroes. And we don't take that lightly. I mean, all the stories that we have accumulated for it is that these people are putting themselves out there. You know, it's not necessarily comfortable situations and circumstances that they've gone through, but we're just really grateful for that they're willing to use their story to impact others.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And I'm quite sure Chelsea's mom is watching right now, and she's probably on her second box of Kleenex. But Jeremiah, so where is he now after this real challenging time? Well, it's now Jeremiah holds a position of police liaison in the Calgary Indigenous Court. He represents the Calgary Police Service by building positive relationships with Indigenous people and by helping them with their healing as they navigate the legal system. And now this is quite amazing. In 2016, just 7 months after his aneurysm, Jeremiah accepted the National Youth Justice Policing Award, honoring the positive one-on-one relationships he builds with at-risk Indigenous youth through the YARD program. And something we at Impact Society are really excited about is again, the programs, how they've been developing. Some of you will know this already, but some of you don't. One of the things over the past couple of years where we've had the privilege of, for many years, being involved with Indigenous communities, having different teachers, Indigenous leaders come alongside of us. And so now we have contextualized the Heroes program into an Indigenous focus program called Heroes Are Warriors. And so that's been really exciting to advance, and there's been a lot of time and effort and investment put into that. And you're going to meet an individual named Jordan Rempel. And we're so proud of Jordan. And I'm going to say, when you contribute, it allows us to have people like Jordan who have an amazing capacity, a capacity that goes way beyond Colette and I. Jordan's background, which he can't go into, but he understands all too well the challenges of young people that get caught in the cycle of addiction. But in coming through it and becoming excellent at supporting others out of that cycle, he realized he wanted to be proactive in what he did. And so Chris Primo introduced Jordan to Impact Society, and Jordan is now our Heroes program director. We couldn't tell you that, like, we're so proud of this young man. And so even right now, as we will talk about in a bit, but you see that there's been a $70,000 matching contribution put up for the Christmas season. When you give, it supports us in having excellent people like Jordan come on board. And that money that you give goes right to the front lines of us being able to put programs in the hands of those who support young people, whether they be teachers or parents or community workers. We're able to put programs of excellence in their hand because of you. So thank you. And now we want you to experience more of what a Heroes chapter is like by listening to Jordan Rempel.
Thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and thank you Chelsea and Jeremiah for sharing your story. And what I wanted to walk you guys through tonight is a bit of an experiential activity that we do in the Heroes program. Colette and Jack talked about the water and the walls, the water representing the gifts and abilities, and those walls that we build around it because of our circumstances, labels, and fears. And in Jeremiah's story, it was very clear what his labels were, what his circumstances caused those labels to be, and how those fears created those labels also. And in Jeremiah's story, he talked about different things, feeling like maybe that voice in his head, saying that maybe you are useless, maybe those teachers are right, maybe I am a bully, maybe I am a loser, maybe I'm not good enough. And all these labels that he put on himself, the circumstance put on himself, that society put on him, all those things just got pasted all over him. And I just want you to imagine what it would be like to walk around looking like I do right now. To walk around, to go to your work, to introduce yourself to new people, to walk into the bathroom and look in the mirror and this is what you see. That you're a bully, that you're angry, that you're not good enough, that you're a failure, that you're never going to succeed. And that's what so many kids are dealing with today. And that's what Jeremiah had to deal with. And Jeremiah had a very tough story, a very tough upbringing. At the same time, he was fortunate that he had some really good coaches in his life that came along and recognized that maybe he wasn't a bully. Maybe anger wasn't so big and they saw him as caring instead of being a bully. They saw him as being talented instead of being useless. And they started building him up and looking at what he was good at, what his gifts were, what his abilities were. He had a girlfriend that invited into her home over Christmas to just experience what family was like, what love was, and just really give him an opportunity to be a part of something that up until that point he hadn't really experienced. Seeing some empathy there instead of being angry. And then all these things that when people started to surround him and people started to be positive into life, as people started to recognize who he really was behind those walls, started to look at him for his gifts and his abilities, for his talents, the things that he gets to be now, the husband he gets to be, instead of being looked at as a loser, the good dad to two beautiful little kids. And above all else, a hero. And that's what the right people at the right time gave Jeremiah the opportunity to do, is look past his labels, look past what he believed that he was, what other people believed that he was, and really see the true gifts. And that's what this program is all about. It's about taking down those walls and not necessarily forgetting about them and saying that it didn't exist, but using it as a platform of success and start to see that those labels that you put on yourself, that circumstances that put on you, that society has put on you, that teachers or peers or whoever may be, if it's family, that those aren't true, that the real you is the things, those positive things, those gifts and abilities that we spend so much time talking about. And once we give the kids the opportunity to not live from these labels, to recognize that that's not their true self, that they're not these walls, they're not their circumstances, they're not their labels, they're not their fears, there's those gifts and abilities that they're hiding. And once we give the kids that ability to see that, that's where that desire to succeed really comes from. Thank you everybody for coming, and I'm really excited to share with you what 2020 has looked like. I know that's probably not an expression that many of you heard, that we're happy to share something about 2020, but here we are. As everybody knows, 2020 has been an extremely challenging year, and it has been for us at the Impact Society too. So much of what we do involves going into schools, running assemblies, training teachers, connecting with kids, connecting with educators, and obviously that all came to a halt. And one of the things that I appreciate so much about the Impact Society is everybody's willingness to adapt. So instead of looking at this like, it's kind of make or break and we can't do what we were focused on. We took it as an opportunity to reinvent some of our programs, and I want to tell you guys about a few of the updates that we have from this past year. So first off, I want to talk to you guys about Heroes at Home. This is a fully digitized online program for parents that want to learn how to parent from a strength-based perspective, and it's great timing for any parent that has a kid going through Heroes, learning that same language they can use in the home and working on similar activities and having a lot of really healthy, genuine family discussions that come from this program. It's available online. If you go to our website, impactsociety.com, you can sign up on there. Super easy, super user-friendly, and everything's online. But there's still that opportunity to connect. We offer deep dive sessions that will be on Zoom, online, so there will still be an opportunity for you to connect with other parents, to talk about some of the issues that you're having or work through some of the coursework together and really build relationships. That's what we're always focused on at the Impact Society, is how can we get people to connect, how can we get them to build relationships, and how can we get them working towards a better future together. Second update that I'm really excited to share with you guys is our completely revised Heroes program. We're very purposeful about making a lot of white space in this, having a lot of areas that the kids can draw in. Obviously, we're celebrating 25 years of Impact tonight and connecting with youth that have taken this program 15, 20 years ago. A lot of them still reflect on this journal, still keep it by their bedside, still look at it when they're going through rough or good times, and just as a journal to reflect on how far they've come. And we really want to make it as personable as possible, as personalizable as possible. The new stories, you've just heard one of them from Jeremiah and Chelsea, and that's just one of the stories that we have. We're super excited to announce that 9 of our 10 stories that we use are Canadian-based stories. In the last 25 years of Impact Society, we've had the extremely fortunate opportunity to work with just phenomenal individuals that all have great stories. So a lot of the stories that we have in here are from people that are very familiar with the Heroes program, and we were very intentional about who we chose for these stories. Canada is a very diverse place, so we wanted to make sure that we weren't just sharing one type of story. We have a story of new Canadians that came over that struggled to find their culture, and their families were working long hours and looking for where they fit. We've got stories of First Nations individuals that experienced systematic racism or generational trauma, and what that was like, and the bullying that went on with them. We've got Robin Regeer's story here, a Calgary Flames player that had an extremely supportive family growing up, to great parents, great values, great morals given to him, and worked hard towards his dream of becoming a hockey player, only to get in a car accident when he was a rookie, and what it was like for him to overcome that. I'm not sure if anybody who's familiar with it. YouTube it after this. If you haven't, Josh Yant, the doorman, just YouTube that. But he's a phenomenal kid that went through some very traumatic bullying to the point where it almost took him to suicide. He lost his father at an early age, and he made a decision in high school that he was going to do something small to change who he was, and started holding the door open for people. Long story short, he ended up winning Prom King, and he's international speaker now, talking about bullying, talking about being a people builder. And it's just so cool to have all these stories. We're very intentional that every kid will relate to every story to some degree, but there'll be that one story in there that could be like, wow, that could be me. We've also added a live it out part to every chapter. So at the end of every chapter is based around some sort of skill, some sort of value, some sort of way of looking at yourself. If it's self-esteem, people building, giving back, decision-making. So we've really been focused on putting a practical application piece at the end of every chapter. So at the end of every chapter, there'll be kind of challenge to how are you going to include this in your life this week? And it's very simple things. It's things that I'm sure a lot of you do. It's how to set goals, going out of your way to build somebody up this week, writing something positive that you like about yourself on a sticky note, putting it on the mirror and reading it to yourself every morning and every night. But just those little things that I sincerely believe, if we get kids doing this at 12, 13 years old, and that they follow doing that for the rest of their lives, they are going to be extremely successful. I think back to 12-year-old me and the confidence issues that I had and the things that I went through. And if I would have been able to actually like who I was at some point and set some goals and achieve them and see how good that felt, I think the confidence would have came by a lot sooner for me than it did. And we're really happy to announce our partnership with the Flourishing Life Institute. We have developed a pre and post survey that kids take before the Heroes program and after the Heroes program that identifies their 3 biggest strengths. You'll see that Sparks report on the right. And it'll give them a printout, a 1-page printout that they get back from the data that they put in, the questions that they answered of their 3 biggest strengths, and then 2 areas they need to work on. But you'll also see that little color-coded dot at the top left-hand side of the Sparks report. And that helps identify where they're at on the thriving mindset model. So a red would be in survival mindset, which usually things aren't going that well. They're just focused on getting through the day, probably get the bad situation at home, getting bullied at school, whatever that may look like. The maintaining mindset, where they're not so just focused on getting through the day, but they're really just kind of stuck in that comfort zone, not really wanting to make new friends or go new places, just kind of comfortable sitting there and making it through the day. We got the capable flourishing mindset, which is where they're starting to be successful. The analogy that we like to use is there's a student that's really good at basketball, so why would I try volleyball? Because I might not be good at it. So they're doing well, they have good marks in school, but they're still not taking positive risks. And we got the optimal flourishing is where we aim to get kids to, is that's when they're taking positive risks, they're being part of their community, they're building people up, they're looking for opportunities that they can really help themselves out, help others around them out, and that's where we try to get them through. It also comes with a playbook for educators on questions to ask and how to build relationships with those kids and help guide them through those different mindsets. Next year, I'd like to show you a little bit of one of the reports that this generates, and I think this will be a game changer for schools. Here we got an example of a resiliency report of what it would look like if a school took it. So you can see how in some of these areas they're doing really well. You see a lot of the blue, 59 for home life support, home life influence / support, 53 in school influence / support. So they really feel like they have good peers, they have good mentors, but we look over on the other side in social awareness, self-management, self-care, those are all areas that are lacking. So having the teacher having the awareness of where their class is doing really well and pulling from those strengths, and then having kind of targeting some of those areas that are struggling. And oh, my class doesn't know much about self-care. They don't really seem to do that much. What can I do to be a part of that? How can I start to change that? And we could break that down for school, class, and individual. So it's a phenomenal asset to our program. And with the Heroes program, like we're getting all these metrics that show where the kids are doing well and where the kids are struggling. And we have a program that is proven to increase self-esteem by an average of 23%, acceptance of others, equality, and social justice values by 28%, and overall increase in students' mental well-being from 20 to 30%. So not only do we have the data or the tool to get the data, but we have a method that's proven to improve everything that they're going through across the board. And the last thing that I want to talk to you tonight about is this year we have had a phenomenal opportunity. We've been recognized by the Government of Alberta, City of Calgary, and partnered with the Calgary Flames Foundation. And they've all recognized the need for Heroes programs, especially in a year like this, seeing how much kids are struggling with their mental health, how much changes there have been. They've really stepped up to the plate and seeing that this is a program that kids need. It's not something that's an extra, it's not something that's an add-on, but they're seeing that this program needs to be in schools. And they all stepped up to the plate and gave us a substantial amount of money to give us a program, to give us a bursary program so that schools weren't harnessed with the cost. And that's one thing that we've noticed time and time again. It's not the demand for the program that's going down. The people want the program, they see it, they're hooked, they know that it'll be great for their school. The barrier that we're always getting in the way of is that schools just don't have money right now. They don't have the ability to pay any extra. We're all aware of the budget cuts that the CBE has taken, that across Alberta, the budget cuts that every school has faced, making it hard to support their students. And with these grants, we've had the ability to subsidize 2,000 students from the Government of Alberta, from the City of Calgary, and from the Flames Foundation. Within a month and a half of releasing that, we trained 24 new schools, and we have more banging on our door asking about the bursary. So that's what we're here to ask you guys here for today. We have $70,000 in the bank. We have a match campaign, and this program costs $45 per student. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things. It's just to look at what you can do to help, get this into school and in a community that they're close to. I'd love to connect with any one of you one-on-one. My info is all on the Impact Society website. If you have any questions about our program, if you know a school that may be interested, or you just want to catch up and chat and nerd out on some more stats with me, I'd be happy to do that. So thanks again for taking the time out of your day to sit with us and hear what we have to offer. We really appreciate your support.
We are so thankful for the team that we have at Impact Society. You know, might be small in numbers, but let me tell you, that we are powerful in what we've been able to accomplish this year. So thank you to Jordan for just sharing all that information, and it kind of makes you, phew, we did all that,
Yeah.
right? We kept busy over this last year, but So worth it, so worth it. But we also want to thank some of our partners, right? Partners like RBC.
Step Energy has been a long time supporter. Yeah.
Dr. Wayne Hammond, we just shout out to you and your team at Flourishing Life. Just really appreciate and excited about where that's going to go, and just the tools that schools will have in their hands because of that.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
no, you go.
Well, I was going to say, and so many education communities, like so many school boards, that if it wasn't for you and your desire to be supporting youth in the way and seeing Heroes as a way to do it, as a way to build the strengths and resilience and help young people thrive, like we wouldn't be around.
Absolutely.
So, and then there's just so many community partners, as we've said many times. So you can tell why we are excited about what's been happening.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to be telling you now why we think the future is bright.
So why is Impact Society at this stage now where it's time for a transition? Well, I've been really grateful. We had Chris Primo join us almost a couple of years ago on a part-time basis, and that gradually moved into full-time. He was willing to come as full-time as the COO, the Chief Operations Officer of Impact Society. We'd had operations people with Impact Society before, but where this was different with Chris was his capacity to understand the way the structure of the organization had to be developed and to begin to build that out. And at the same time, really have a strength of vision. And watching Chris really absorb the culture and the passion that Colette and I had for the organization and for young people, put processes that are needed at this time and for what I believe to carry us into the next 10 years. And then listen to him express to psychologists and to educators in modern language what really is needed for them to be confident that Impact Society has the capacity to impact youth for the long term. I came to the place of really believing and starting to talk to Colette and eventually to Chris that I believe it's time for a transition. Not for Colette and I to leave the organization, but it's time for it to be handed to somebody who's younger, who has the passion and the skills and the capacity that goes way beyond the capacity that I have.
So I don't know how often in life someone gets to do what we're about to do now, but something
You shouldn't
still
do
get
that.
You shouldn't have looked at Colette. Something that you can tell we get emotional because we're so grateful, and that is that we're at this place now that we're able to hand over the leadership of Impact Society, and now we are publicly announcing Chris Primo, who we are so proud of, who is now the CEO, officially the CEO of Impact Society. And Chris, I know you're watching right now, and I've told you many times, but Colette and I want to affirm in front of the public who are joining us right now, just that we are excited to serve you and serve the continued vision of Impact Society. For those of you who are watching, as if you could have been a part of many meetings of Colette and I listening to Chris, to his passion, to his capacity to communicate with educators, with psychologists, to be using the language that is needed for the next generation of educator and the next generation of student, the next generation of a youth worker. Chris just has the capacity to do that, and it goes beyond what we have. So no, we are not leaving the organization. We're quite excited, and I'm excited that now I get to fulfill a role that I really feel fits my strengths. Those of you who know me at all, you know that No, operations are not my strength. Regan Davis, you might have snickered at that moment, but no, I am not, operations are not my strong point. But what I will be getting to do is I am now going to be the VP of External and Indigenous Relations. And I'm really excited about that and working with Impact Society, working with partners so that we can see Chris and Jordan succeed beyond their wildest dreams. So Chris, on behalf of Colette and I, we want to thank you for your commitment. Thank you for everything you're bringing to the team. And we want you now to be able to see Chris talk about vision and transition.
Our vision, I'll put it this way, is for every student, every young person in the world to have the tools and system of support they need to live a flourishing life. The reason why we've set that out is from day one. That's what this organization has been about. It was grown out of a tragedy where a young lady lost her life as a result of decisions that she made and circumstances that she didn't feel that she had a way out of. She had all of the gifts, all of the abilities that someone of her age could have had, but because of improper decision making and that spiral that can happen in teenage years, got caught up in the wrong crowd and lost her life. Our mission, the reason this organization was started, was so that young people don't have to see that as their only option. Every young person we wake up every day in a world full of risk. And what we want to be able to do, what we are able to do through the Heroes programs, our whole suite of programs are designed this way to enable young people to understand who they are, to build their strength-based identity and make positive decisions as a result based on what their purpose is. And so as an organization, we've set out the goal to reach 1 million students per year by 2030. That's going to take a lot of work and a lot of growth, but the education system right now, not just here in Canada, but globally, is transforming to understand that we need a whole person centric approach to how we help young people grow up in our society. And so it begins not with just giving them the right information they need and helping them be as aware as they can, but actually helping them develop psychologically and sociologically the tools and the characteristics and the personal identity to make good decisions for the right reason. And as a result, what you see is a commitment to learning, higher grades, higher school attendance. So that paradigm shift, if you will, from an input-output model of education is now shifting towards that whole person approach, because we know and we see that when a young person is addressed in that way and their development and their education is focused on them becoming the best version of themselves, everything else comes as a result. Now, the vision for Impact Society is unchanged over the last 25 years. We may be using different words. We've made a lot of friends along the way that have helped us prove and understand why our programs work. But this vision to reach 1 million youth per year by 2030 wouldn't have been made possible if not for one man taking upon himself to invest in the lives of young people. And that legacy that Jack has created for this organization has a ripple effect around the world. And I'm privileged to have an opportunity to take that vision into the next generation. And so if I'm ever accused of seeing further, it's because, as Isaac Newton said, if we can see further, it's because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And it's a privilege to work with Jack and to be on his shoulders, seeing what can come next as a result of the work that he's put in for youth over the years.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone who's been a part of the Impact Society for 25 years, journeying with Jack and Colette and the team to help make the future bright for young people, to help them overcome the mental and emotional struggles that life brings at us, to be continually innovating and growing programs in terms of their depth as well as their capacity to reach young people across our province, across our nation, around the world. I'm humbled, I'm honored and emotional about this opportunity that's been handed to me to lead this organization. When Jack approached me with this idea about 1.5 years ago, the first thing I said, without skipping a beat, was, "I'll only do it if you're with me." Jack has laid the groundwork for this vision and this organization, and it's a privilege for me to be part of this story, especially when I think about my own story and my own journey that I've been able to, because of the supports of great people, because of the investment of family and friends and mentors, overcome my own obstacles as a teenager. You wouldn't recognize me if you saw me back then, but I look back at that and I see that the only way that I was able to come out of a deep, dark, rebellious stage as a teenager was because I had systems of support and people providing the right tools at the right time to help me see who I really was, that I wasn't the things that I did. I wasn't the circumstances I was finding myself in, that I was someone born with a purpose and that I had a gift to share with others. And that's what brought me into youth work. That's what brought me into investing my time and my energy and my life into helping young people see who they really were. And that's how I met Jack. That's how most of us meet Jack, is we're just looking for help. And he comes in like an angel or an answer to prayer that is able to just journey with you, to provide you with an opportunity to see how these tools can develop young people and shift the trajectory of their lives from a direction of pain, a direction of becoming those labels and those walls, to a direction of being who they were meant to be and who they were born to become. I want you to think just for 1 minute about yourself when you were at that age, 12, 13 years, and what kind of struggles you dealt with, what kind of barriers that you had to overcome. I'll come back to that in just a minute, but I want to also touch on what we've been asked, and really the theme of tonight, and lots of people have been commenting on YouTube and different platforms that we're streaming this on. What are you guys doing next? Well, I'll tell you, it's about one thing. And it's not about something different, it's about the same thing, but continuing to take the Heroes program, invest in updating and upgrading and making it possible for other people to be part of it. Right now, the world may seem dark. Right now, the world may seem full of challenges that are unprecedented. We've heard that word, unprecedented times, said throughout this 2020 experience that we've been living. And the more that we meet as a group, as a team, the more we have these conversations with educators and parents and donors and people who believe that the future can be bright, the more we see and we know that the future is bright. Thinking about that self, that former self, what's the gift that you wish that you could give to them? What's the one thing that you wish that you knew when you were that age that could have made a world of difference? For me, it's confidence. I've been accused many times of being a confident person, but that's just good training in terms of being able to speak and to have a conversation and say what's on my mind. I am a verbal processor, and it can be a gift, it can also be a hindrance. But really deep down inside, especially at a young age, I was worried about what other people thought about me. I was worried about what my peers thought about me. I was worried about what girls or teachers or everybody else, but I didn't have a calm, focused, confident understanding of what I thought of me. And it was that struggle that led me to so many bad decisions and heartbreaks and issues. But it was the opposite of that. It was understanding who I really am, understanding what my gifts and abilities are, and understanding that I have a purpose to share with others that made all the difference in my own life and enabled me to live this life, this career of passion and support for young people and teachers and educators. And I want you to imagine for a second what the world would be like if every young person had that experience, to know who they are, to live from their gifts and abilities, and to use those gifts and abilities to build themselves and the world around them. That's the vision of Impact Society. There's some really cool things that we're working on to fulfill that vision. Number one is the digitization of our programs. We've already digitized our parenting program, and as a result of the contributions of so many people, we're able to now provide that parenting program alongside the Heroes program so that every student who takes the Heroes program can bring Heroes at home to their parents, to their caregivers, so that they can journey alongside their young person. Success doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because we have people surrounding us, people supporting us, and we want to make sure that not just the youth have these tools, but that the educators and parents and caregivers in this system of education has that ability to really see and to journey with these young people as they grow in their gifts and they start to share them with others and build up the world around them. We're also working on an update to Heroes 2, which is one of my favorite programs because it not only helps young people to continually elevate their mental health, but also engages them in a long discovery journey where they work with peers to collaboratively do a project that will make the world a better place, one person at a time. So we're looking forward to so many new opportunities to make our programs more accessible, to make them more diverse, and to also enable it to be translated into different languages as a result of our partnerships with our digital partners who are helping us to make these programs available not just online, but to be able to be translated into various languages so that borders and language are not a barrier to the success of the next generation. So if you're listening right now and you want to be part of this, you probably already are. If you sat through this already, I have a sneaky suspicion that you love Jack and Colette, that you love the Impact Society and the Heroes program, and that you've seen firsthand, hopefully, the remarkable difference that this experience, this hero's journey, can make in the lives of youth. So the invitation tonight and what you can do to help us make this future bright for young people is to sponsor a young person's journey. We have a wonderful community of support that have stepped up to do a matching campaign. So tonight, you have an opportunity to not just invest in one person, but every person, every young person, every hero that you sponsor tonight, that gift will get doubled. So it costs just $45 for a young person to take the Heroes program, for their parent to be involved in the program, for their teacher to go through the training journey with Jordan Rempel and our expert team of educators and psychologists to help them be best equipped to deliver the program. That small investment is a game changer for every youth who has an opportunity to experience it. And that's the ask, that's the invitation. Help us make the future bright. It is bright, but only together can we make that a real thing and truly realize this vision of a city, of a nation, of a world of young people who are truly heroes. So give now, go to impactsociety.com/donate or just impactsociety.com and click that donate button and help a young person have a transformative experience this year.
And as we wrap up, we want to thank you so much. And as Chris has just talked about, people who have helped us, like, I want to think of groups like the Calgary Foundation, who came alongside and believed in investing in parents. And so they've helped us, and that program's digitized. And we've got groups like Viewpoint Group that are coming alongside and supporting, have been supporting, and the Calgary Flames Foundation, and again, many others. And I don't know if you're watching, but we've got, well, I guess I'm not going to throw a name out there. I've just got a very, very close friend, and you know who who you are. And you've kind of kept the organization alive many times. And we just want to say thank you because of you. And others like you. There's some people you might have be giving us $10 a month so that at the end of the year, 3 young people go through Heroes. Then there's others who have given so thousands can go through. And whether you've given for one or given for thousands, we want you to remember this. There's young people who are walking down the street today. There's young people who are working. There's young people who are being an encouraging part of a family or a community. There's young people who are not addicted. There's young people who are living with purpose and significance because of you. And so we thank you. We thank you for being with us this evening. We thank you for standing with us for over 25 years. And we believe, because the future is bright, that you will be proud 25 years from now to say, look what's happened through Impact Society. I am glad I've been a part of that. So thank you.
And hopefully next time we can see you in person. We would love that. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been just such an honor to be able to celebrate 25 years, which is really 26 years, tonight with you.
And so the future is bright, and thank you for your part of it.